Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Today, we have new amazing stories, so subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Lawyers, what is the most ridiculous reason a client has ever given you to file a lawsuit? Some of the cases I work on for a judge are really silly. The most ridiculous was this guy who alleged an international UN-based plot against rednecks, that was the word he used, in America, and how they had some super secret high-tech army to eliminate rednecks. While he was in jail, he asked the president to release him, give him a lot of money, let him join the church and not pay taxes, recognize his country as an independent nation, and other things. It was the government, Asia, yes, the whole continent, the UN, and other groups that he was suing. He also said that he sent letters to Britney Spears, but she never replied, which he said was proof of a big plot against rednecks. All of this was written in a 30-page document that was impossible to read because of his bad handwriting. How they had some super secret high-tech army to eliminate rednecks. An army of teachers. Wait. Britney Spears and the UN are real? Someone sued me once because I hit them with my Ram charger. It was my fault, but he tried to play me and lost horribly. He first got into the ambulance at the scene, but then changed his mind and said he was fine. We were both taken home by the same officer. He then gets drunk at a bar, falls off a bar stool, and hurts his back. He needs to go to the hospital now that he's hurt enough. He files a lawsuit, but doesn't tell anyone about it. In court, my lawyer ripped him apart, and I only had to pay what his insurance company paid for his car. My lawyer told me that was the most fun he's ever had on a case afterward. I also have another one. 12 years ago, I almost fell for a scam. I've never seen a police officer so angry. I hit a woman in a Toyota 4x4 from behind while going about 10 miles per hour. She slammed on her brakes as we pulled off at a red light. I hit her with my brake lights as the sun went down. A tow hook about 3 inches long and 1 inch wide was the only part of my truck that hit her car. The entire left side of her back bumper was pushed in, a taillight broken, and minor body damage. I don't have any pictures, but it was very clear that my effect couldn't have made all that happen. She claimed otherwise, and very loudly to the officer that reported to the scene. He was very angry. He tells me that I am free to go, and I waste no time doing so. As I pulled off, he was giving her the drill instructor treatment. Every day, people ask me about bad cases that might happen. Some are fine, some are silly, and some are important. On the plaintiff side, where I usually work on a cut, it's my job to keep people out. There's no reason for me or any other lawyer to spend their own money on a case that isn't worth it. When we take on fee cases as lawyers, we pay for everything ourselves, and if we don't win for our clients, we just walk away. That's not working for free. That's paying to work, which is how a lot of the cases that people complain about work. The insurance business has done a great job of making people think that lawyers are wasting our money on frivolous claims. In order to stop the flood of fake cases that don't exist, people believe it and then pass tort reform. As soon as you say McDonald's coffee in this country, every stupid F in the room will agree that the system is totally out of control. If you read the real case instead of just hearing Jay Leno talk about it for 2 sentences, you'll see that even that case wasn't silly. I was ranting when a woman asked me to help her sue her neighbor. A lady was worried because her old neighbor had added a door to the side of his house. She thought that he did this so he could see into her bedroom. It made her so mad that she was willing to pay me out of her own pocket to take this silly case to court. She kept telling me it was about the principle and money was no object. When someone crazy comes into our office and yells, "Take my money," I did what we always do. I quoted her a retainer of $35,000 and told her I'd get right on it as soon as the funds have cleared. She asked why I needed such a large retainer, to which I replied, "You don't have a real basis for a lawsuit. If I'm going to look like an idiot helping you, I am absolutely going to be well paid for it." She left. That's the way we do it. Even though it wasn't his own case, my dad had to protect this thief. This thief was drunk and didn't have any money to buy a mask to hide his identity, so he wore something that was made from mustard-colored trousers and robbed a bar. After the robbery, he just went outside and walked down a busy shopping street to meet up with his partner in another bar. After that, they split the money and went their separate ways. This is where the magic starts. Our hero thought that the most inconspicuous thing he can do is walk back up the shopping street toward the bar he just robbed minutes earlier. By this time, the police had arrived at the bar he robbed, and the bartender gave them a pretty good description. He was a guy with mustard-colored pants on top of his head. Since this took place in February, it was pretty cool. It was still freezing cold as the thief walked back up the shopping street toward the bar he had robbed. To fend off the cold, he gets the greatest idea: put the trousers back on his head. As the police looked into the crime, he walked past the bar he robbed in this way. He was, of course, caught right then and there. I worked on a case for a family who was going to lose their house. Their home was saved, and the case went well. They began to believe that they could get anything they wanted by suing someone. My points of contact were the youngest brothers in the family, two obese single guys in their early 40s who were always together. After a year, one of the brothers calls me in a panic. "OP, you need to help us! We were attacked at McDonald's just now!" The specifics? The drive-thru was where my two clients got their food. They called the girl working the drive-thru names and said rude things to her when the food didn't come with ketchup in the bag. The girl threw the handful of ketchup packets at the driver underhand toss and ran off crying. The driver got hit in the face by a package. They came up to me and said they thought these facts made McDonald's liable for millions of dollars in damages for racism, which is not a reason to sue. They were sure they had won the lottery and were only missing a few pieces of paper to become rich. I informed them that I would file an insurance claim with McDonald's as soon as the brothers showed me medical and mental health papers that showed how badly they were hurt mentally and physically when the ketchup packet was thrown at them. They haven't really bothered me about it since. What are the dumbest things your HOA has done? My folks bought a home in 2000, and they had some awful HOA stories. One of my favorites is this one. The layout of the neighborhood is like this: house, garden, mini street, garden, house. My dad had to construct a driveway at the back of the garden because we lacked a garage. The HOA was upset about this and told my dad that there needed to be more room so the automobile could enter without running the risk of damaging a neighbor's fence. It had ample room, but my dad agreed. As a result, we lose a portion of our garden the size of an SUV. Dad could now park on the property without always searching for a spot. One of the HOA board members parked directly in front of the driveway, the space of garden we lost, but still property of course, and blocked the car of my dad. Dad tells politely to move car. This happened more than once. Then the HOA board member was hit by the universe. The gate to our backyard where said guy was parking was damaged by a rather severe storm. The entire night the wind pounded his automobile. He never left his car there again. After purchasing my first home, I discovered a few weeks later that our HOA had been suspended by the state due to years of unpaid taxes. The seller was aware of this but kept quiet about it. The HOA changed management firms just before the sale, which required the closure of their old bank account so that money could be transferred to a new account under the new management. The new administration was unable to open the new account due to the absence of state recognition. Similar to opening a personal bank account without any identification, it was impossible. With nowhere to deposit them, all of our money was stranded as a check. As a result, the HOA members had nowhere to send their monthly dues. It also implied that there was no account from which to pay bills. The board bumbled around and had meetings for months without producing any useful results. The previous management business, whose carelessness brought us here in the first place, ignored any attempts to reach us. The new management business promised to handle all of the paperwork to fix the issue, but when I looked into it, I discovered that they had done nothing. And the invoices began to arrive with late notifications, resulting in a notice being posted on our building warning us that the water would be turned off soon and the building would be condemned. I had had enough of this S. I therefore conducted extensive research and developed a plan. My leisure time at home and at my lunch breaks at work were almost entirely spent on this. I engaged a lawyer to set up a trust for us so that we could take dues checks and use the trust to pay bills. We were able to settle the late fees and utility bills once the money started flowing again. I persuaded the board to dismiss the new leadership. They were sending us a monthly bill despite the fact that they were doing absolutely nothing to help us. I wrote the termination letter after receiving a hostile call from the management company's CEO, and the board received it. I continued researching state tax and company law. In this case, HOAs are considered corporations, thus I learned how to perform a corporate revival. I required the missing tax records in order to file for reinstatement with the state and with the state tax board. By policy, the tax board process takes 3 months to respond with a decision. After then, the state may require up to 3 months. Our attorney sent us an official letter to our uncooperative former management asking for all financial records. They came back quickly with some of the worst kept records I could have imagined. Records that appeared to have been copied directly from a Word document. However, it contained just enough details for me to finish the tax returns for the omitted years. We then started the protracted wait for the tax board's decision to reinstate us in good standing after sending the tax documents. I compiled a list of suggestions for fresh management firms in the interim. At our annual meeting, we conducted interviews with the 3 candidates that the board had selected. I started contacting the tax board every day once it had been 3 months, and I had heard nothing. Most of the time, nobody could inform us of the progress of our request. I eventually gathered enough details to conclude that nobody there had even glanced at our documents. Fortunately, the sole compassionate person there answered my last phone, listened to my story, and agreed to speed up our papers. We were back in good standing with the tax board a week later. I then submitted the documentation for the corporate reactivation. After approximately a month and a few phone calls, the state once more recognized our HOA as a legitimate entity. We appointed our brand new management, who quickly opened up an account and transferred the trust's funds, and now things are starting to return to some sort of normalcy. I was then appointed HOA treasurer right away. There was a park in the middle of my neighborhood right behind my back fence. The entire neighborhood was managed by the same HOA company, but the neighborhood was officially set up as 2 different HOA communities. The park was marked as not being in the same neighborhood as me, even though it was just across the fence. At least 3 times, the park's irrigation system broke, flooding my whole garden. 3 or 4 times over the span of a few months, I woke up to literally 1.5 feet of water. Over time, my brick fire pit literally sank into the ground an entire layer of brick. Water came into my kitchen on 2 of the occasions, and every time my home's foundation looked weaker and weaker after cleanup. Every time I called the HOA to complain, the flooding almost always happened on a weekend, and it wouldn't be until Monday that they came out, leaving my home flooded for a minimum of 2 days each time. I finally told the BBB and the Water Authority about them after the 3rd or 4th complaint. I also sent a video to the local news. The next business day, the angry boss of the HOA company called me. Even though I sent her a lot of pictures and videos, she said she still thought I was lying. It was because the park can't be flooding your house, she told me when I asked her why she thought that. It's not even in the same HOA neighborhood as where you live. WTF. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But no matter how loudly they complained, they had to fix everything, including the repairs to my house. The amount of money they spent to fix my property was so huge. When my family got a notice to take down our basketball hoop in our driveway because we never got permission to put it up. Now, this was back in 2008, and my dad emailed the HOA to let them know he wasn't going to take it down. They threatened to take away community pool passes, fines, and other things, but what got them to finally shut up was my dad talking to the HOA president. It became out that a newly elected board was abusing its authority and fining people for everything. My dad laughed it off and said if they had asked in the first 10 years, he might have taken it down, but since that hoop went up in 94, there wasn't a chance he was taking it down in 2008 due to not getting permission. He stated they were welcome to come and remove it themselves, but aside from that, it would remain with the house until it was sold. My HOA was recently in the news for ordering a neighbor to demolish a huge treehouse he had constructed for his daughter because it exceeded the dimensions specified in the HOA's plans. They begged to save it on Good Morning America, saying that it was prettier than most college residence halls, but he ultimately had to dismantle the entire thing. After that, everyone in our neighborhood started to despise the HOA. Everyone felt it was their duty to do something bad to them. In the end, the board decided to resign because everyone hated them, even those who had once been on good terms with them. Guys, thank you for all the support and the likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.